I'd like to call this session of the Legislative and Legal Affairs Committee to order. It is 5:30 p.m. on Wednesday, May 14th, and we have two items on our agenda. I'm going to take the items up in the order that they appear in the agenda, and the first item is order number 25-1009-430, communication from Flying Dreams Brewing Company, LLC, regarding a request to expand outdoor seating to use parking spaces on Rollins Avenue adjacent to the existing sidewalk seating. So at this time, I would like to invite you to come on up. Hello.
Hi.
And just for the purpose of public record, if you could just let us know your name and the business you're representing.
I'm David Richardson. I'm the owner, brewmaster of Flying Dreams Brewing Company. Pardon my appearance, I just came from brewing, so.
No
A
worries.
bit bedraggled, but.
No problem at all. I appreciate you being here. And so I am just going to briefly go over the request that you're bringing in front of us. So on April 11th, 2025, we received a communication from David. It says this letter serves as an update to the existing licensing agreement for the use of parking spaces on Rollins Ave adjacent to the existing outdoor seating on the sidewalk of Rollins Ave on the side of the Victoria Building for outdoor seating. So you're asking for permitted use from May through November 2025. You provided a map that's also in our packet, and it shows your current outdoor dining seating, which is the sidewalk area, and then it's the spots that are adjacent to that sidewalk area that was already approved that you're requesting. It says outdoor seating will be open the same hours as the tap room. No additional tables are required from the original license. However, we are requesting additional space to add additional chairs to existing tables. Jersey barriers housed by the Marlborough Department of Public Works will be placed on the outside of the parking spaces with added lighting for customer and vehicles on the road. And so that pretty much details your request. And so before I open it up to committee and other members, is there anything else you'd like to add or share with committee?
Oh, I mean, just that, you know, we had originally, pre-2020, just gotten approved for the sidewalk. And then we get like the winter of 19 into 20 is when we finally got the approval, like we did all the licensing with the state and everything. And so that spring, we were shut down. And then, you know, due to the social distancing, you guys granted us those, and the state allowed you guys to grant us those parking spots to expand. And it just worked really well. It just made it a much nicer area for people to sit in, and we were really, as soon as people could come out and sit outside, we were like busy out there, right? And now that the state isn't just letting you guys say, here you go, we just thought we'd take the opportunity right away to see if we could just continue that.
Thank you very much for the background information, and at this time, I'd like to open it up to members of the committee. Any questions? Councilor Fricillo?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Richardson, for being here. Just one quick question. I did look it up, but you're looking to do the outdoor seating as the same hours as the tap room. What are the hours of the tap room currently?
It varies per day. Wednesday, it's 5 to 9.
Okay.
We'll stay open a little bit later if there's people hanging out, but we've never been open later than 11.
Okay.
Right, so we say the hours are 5 to 9, and then sometimes we'll stay open a little bit later than that because we're licensed until 1. But we usually don't even get close to that. It's just, you know, So then Thursday and Friday is 4 to 9, Saturday is 2 to 9, and Sunday is 2 to 8.
Gotcha. All right. No, I appreciate that. Aside from that, I have no further questions. I do drive down Rollins Ave when I leave City Hall on my way home, and never do I ever see vehicles in those parking spots. Very rarely do I see them. So for those reasons, I really have no concern with this in front of me right now. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Fricillo. Councilor Roby?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had done some looking up at the history of this because I know I was chair of LNL back in 19 when we did approve a license to encroach on the public sidewalk, which then, as you stated, COVID took over and then you were allowed to expand. The original license was an annual license that was supposed to be renewed. So I think if we do anything, we should make sure that what we're doing is a license to encroach. Because it is the sidewalk, and then also if we approve it, the street. I do have some concerns about going into the street. I drove by it today just to look. Your tables that you have out do not match the layout that was approved in that original plan. You state in your letter to us that you don't plan on adding tables, you only plan on adding seats. So based on where you have, and I think when this was originally done, there was an order by the code enforcement that you maintain passage for pedestrians.
Yes.
So your tables and chairs are closer to the building. There's a path from on the sidewalk for people to walk by.
Yes.
If you now have chairs in the street, what are they going to use to put their food on?
So I think there's just, the confusion is when, with the original layout, with the original tables and chairs on the sidewalk, when we added the parking spots, we didn't increase the amount of tables, we just increased the amount of space. Because we couldn't, we had to keep people farther apart, right? So we had to keep people farther apart. And now that the social distancing kind of rules aren't in place, we can put, once we're in the parking spots, not on the sidewalk, but in the parking spaces, we have quite a bit more room to spread out and put, previously just a 4-top that would have been on the sidewalk. Now in the parking spots, we can turn it sideways and put 6 people around it, for instance.
But those 6 people would be on the sidewalk or in the street?
In the parking spot.
Okay, so
we wouldn't be increasing the number of chairs on the sidewalk portion, just on the tables that were in the parking spots.
So you are going to be adding tables and chairs into the parking area?
Not tables.
So you're going to be moving the table, I've got a picture, which I could give you a copy of. And I can pass around to everybody else.
So the way we have it set up here is because we can't just have the parking spots, right, without this approval, is we've put all of the tables onto the sidewalk, right? Which in our original plan approved by the state, which got added to our liquor license as part of our annual renewal, we had all the tables and the chairs on the sidewalk. We didn't add any tables and chairs when we got approved to encroach onto the parking spaces. Okay?
If I may.
We just moved some of them.
I think I understand what you're saying, so just maybe as a way to clarify, just correct me if I'm wrong. Where you have existing tables set up in a certain way, currently on the sidewalk, you are only able to accommodate a certain number of chairs because of their orientation and not blocking the pedestrian traffic. So
Exactly.
You're going to take the same tables that you currently have, move those tables to the parking spaces,
Yes.
where you will now be able to, instead of, say, having them lengthwise up Rollins, they could be switched to horizontally. And that means you'll have the same number of tables, but you will be adding chairs to accommodate that extra space that became available.
Yes.
So it would actually free up the sidewalk
Well, we wouldn't be, so we only be moving half of the tables into the parking spots.
Okay.
So that's what I was saying, the tables that were still on the sidewalk would remain with the same number of chairs on them, so we weren't encroaching onto the sidewalk, or, you know, so we weren't taking up that passable space. But the tables that were in the, that we move over to the parking spaces would have a lot more room to maneuver around.
Thank you. And then the Jersey barriers housed by the Marlborough Department of Public Works would be placed around the parking spaces so that the tables aren't necessarily in the street. They're protected by
Correct.
the barriers.
Right, and then there was kind of one on each end, and then, you know, however many it took to go down to block the side off.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was following correctly. I'm going to turn it back over to Councilor Roby.
Thank you. And that's what I was trying to clarify. You literally are going to have tables and chairs, not only on the sidewalk, but also in the street.
Correct.
But between what's in the street and what's in the sidewalk will still be the ability to walk on the sidewalk. Okay.
Yes, yes.
In that case, I will read a response that I got from Chief Georgie on my question whether he had concerns. It is more concerning, let's see, if Flying Dreams were looking to add chairs to the smaller tables, which currently have only 2 chairs, or add a larger table in order to add more seating, I would not be really concerned. However, it is more concerning if they are moving tables, chairs into the roadway and parking spaces without adding better lighting and barricades to prevent a vehicle from driving through the setup. I'm not sure how many parking spaces they are looking to use, but I would suggest that significant stable barriers need to be in place to protect the seating which may be in the roadway spaces. So if we're approving this, I would also want to make sure, and I would suggest maybe that we get a new seating plan and have new language for the license to encroach that also includes encroaching into the parking spaces with specificity on how many of them. The photo didn't go to this side, but there is a car parked on the street now. I am there the second Thursday of every month, and there are cars parked in those spots when I'm there, and I would say that there are cars parked there. So the fact that there's not a lot of traffic, I guess I'm not really concerned, and I understand your desire to have the seats, and I don't object to that. I just want to make sure that not only the pedestrians sitting in those parking spots, but the drivers of cars going up the street are all separated very safely from each other with those barricades as suggested by the chief of police. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Roby. So before I open it up for further comments and questions, one of the notes that I had also made was the specific number of spaces. I just didn't see it.
I believe it's 4.
Okay. And so regarding my opinion with the number of spaces is, I feel like whenever I've gone, during the warmer months and sat on the outside seating, it's been just a few times, and I've never seen any cars try to utilize any of those spots at that time. And so I personally feel like that it's a nice thing for your customers to be able to enjoy going inside. It has a completely different atmosphere. It's more of that like dark basement. It's a nice, it's a nice dark space if you're looking for that ambiance, but I feel like it would open it up to more people if you were able to also utilize outdoor space. I feel like for a small business that would really kind of open things up for you. And our demographics of downtown are going to be changing as far as number of residents, and so this is something for me that right now this makes sense for me, but perhaps in another year or two we would maybe want to revisit the setup if it seems like the city really does need the parking spaces. So that was just one thing that that I was thinking is that right now it makes sense for me, but I would just want to make sure that it would still make sense in the future. So right now, it does have my support for the season of the May through November 2025, and I'd open it up to others. Councillor Vital?
David, can a wheelchair go down the sidewalk?
Yes.
And you were the first brewery in town, right?
Technically, I think. First to open.
First to open, right? And have you had
Not by long, but,
And you haven't had any major issues with the police?
oh, no.
None at all.
Not,
In fact,
not
you're-
a single one.
In fact, you're pretty well connected to the community,
Sure.
right? In fact, this Sunday, you're going to be helping out over at the Family Fun Festival.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Very good. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Preciado?
Thank you, Madam. Dave, thanks for being here. I've visited your establishment quite a few times, and I have sat outside. Not so much now that we have a kid, but definitely always a nice experience. I was wondering about how many spots we would lose, so you answered that for. How many customers do you typically see right now, like outside on a weekday versus a weekend?
Right now, it's not many. It's still, the weather's still up and down. So,
It's true, it has been typically rainy. What about in the past years when you've had your outdoor space?
so when we first got approved for the spaces in the summer of 2020, we were jammed out there, right? And now it's touch and go. It's all over the place. Sometimes it's half full, too full. Other times there's 3 tables, right? And it just so much depends on how humid it is, how not humid it is, how cool it is, how hot it. If it's too hot, people don't want to sit outside. If it's too cool, people don't want to sit outside. So, it's weather dependent.
Gotcha. So you have seen some business improvement from having that outdoor space,
Absolutely.
meaning more customers coming
And
in?
visibility as well.
Yeah.
Because we're the least visible business in all of downtown because we have a whole parking lot behind, or in front of the business.
Yeah.
And, we can't put a sign on the street other than the green and gold one, which no one can see because it blends in with all the other green and gold signs.
Understood.
People often say they drive by it all the time. People ask me, hey, how long have you been here? I was like, oh, we came in December of 18. They're like, how am I learning about this right now? And I think visibility for us is really, really poor from the street.
Yeah, I would, so on that point, your business is one of the businesses I do see on that end lit up, especially the outdoor patio. So it definitely does bring a visual attraction to the west side of Main Street, which, I think all of us would really enjoy, especially since there are new businesses coming in there. So, because of that, and, I don't really see any other issues, parking issues or whatsoever. So I would be in support of that, although I'm not on the committee, so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Preciado. Councilor Rome?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I heard you say, and I see it's in writing too, that you're going to be using barriers provided by the city. And the police chief said that the barriers shall be safe. And I noticed in your liability information, it indicates that the city's not held liable. But if the barriers fail based on the style and the concern of the police chief, it would concern me that we want to make sure the city is not liable. Because if the barrier breaks down, doesn't do its job, what's the liability to the city? So I don't know if that's been addressed by legal yet, but I would suggest highly that be addressed. Because unfortunately, if something was to happen as an accident and the barrier was at fault, I don't want to see the city liable. It's kind of unique that the city's providing the barriers. I look across the street and they have their own barriers. How did that originate, the use of the city barriers?
So when COVID happened and so many businesses weren't allowed to do business inside to begin with, the city graciously granted a lot of, or businesses that could and would and wanted to, these parking spots and barriers. The state, I think, waived some kind of application or license or whatever that they would normally need, to change the license at the state level to do this kind of thing. The state said to the cities, hey, if you want to do this because COVID and, go ahead, right? So the city allowed us and a few other businesses around town to take up some extra parking spots because we were doing all of our business outside. And then that happened, I think it happened for as many years as the state kept saying, yeah, sure, keep doing it. And then this year is the first year that the states came back and said, hey, we want to go back to getting this all on board.
And I'm agreeable to outside seating. You're seeing it everywhere, from down on Route 20 East to right in the center of the city. I'm just concerned about if we're giving you the barriers, not just liability, why aren't we doing it for every business? It creates a situation of making sure it's fair for all. So I'd like to hear from the DPW commissioner on this, if indeed this is a practice that's going to occur for all businesses or your business. I don't want to see others treated differently. If we're going to treat one business with the same kind of situation, we should be treating them all the same way. And just across the street, I don't see city Jersey barriers.
They built them a new sidewalk for them, though.
Those are city barriers?
No, the sidewalk, that didn't used to be there.
Yeah, okay.
The sidewalk didn't used to be, the sidewalk over there at Welly's is bumped out.
Yep.
So they don't need, that's just now they
have planters out there. I guess I'll call them planters. But they are right out there. You can look out the window and you'll see them. But the other question is, so I would ask that our DPW director at least respond that this is a norm for all businesses, or are we treating one business different? It's got to be fair across the board, in my view.
If I interject a little bit, Madam Chair?
Yes, Councilor Irish?
Yeah, I believe those are the exact same barriers that started at Welly's. However, they're approved by DOT or whatever, the weight and the measurements of those barriers were approved by the state. And those are identical that were used up and down Main Street, I believe, until those cutouts were made. So I believe that those were endorsed from the very beginning.
And again, my question is,
Thank you.
is this something the city does for all businesses, or is it they have leftovers and they can do it? Liability, obviously, if it fails, should the liability statement also indicate we're not responsible for the barriers if they have any failure? I would ask legal counsel to review that. Another question, the lighting. How does that occur and where do the wires go, and is that your responsibility or is the city providing the lighting?
we're doing the lighting.
And where are the wires? Are they on the ground? Are
They're
they
up in the air.
Up in the air? They're going to be supported by?
They're supported by a combination of the building and a couple of the trees that are right there.
Okay. So they won't be dangerous if you're trying to, because you've got to be concerned about the pedestrians. I heard other comments on that as well.
No, they're like 9 feet up at the lowest.
Okay. As long as no tall Celtic player walks by, we should be okay.
I think they'd even be okay.
Yeah. One other, and first of all, I did hear Councilor Vito compliment you. Of course, we're very appreciative of any business. We have one sitting behind me right now, coming up next, of what you do for our community.
Thank you.
I had a question on the food. Do you serve food there?
We make pretzels, that's it.
Okay. And at the end of the day, do you have a cleanup process for the outside so we don't attract rodents?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, we
what-
clean, I mean, we clean every single day. The only time we run into an issue is sometimes we get transients sitting on the tables when we're not open and leaving trash there. And then we come to open up and we got to clean all the trash up and wipe everything down and, open up.
So your cleanup is at the end of the day? You'll be cleaning up and
Preferably.
through the day?
I mean, we also wipe the tables down before we open as well because pollen and leaves and whatnot fall on the
Understandable.
tables.
I've been outside in your facility at an event once, so it's a nice area, and I understand. It's just worried about liability and also fairness to all businesses. So
Yeah.
I'd ask legal counsel review the liability on those barriers, and that our DPW commissioner respond in the respect that we're utilizing city property for the barriers. As has been done for other businesses, but where is the policy? I'd like to see that, so I can ask the DPW commissioner. Oh, he's
I'd
here.
like to invite
There you are.
Commissioner Scott to the well.
So
I did get
the
him on.
question, if I threw Madam Chair to you, is this a policy the city has to allow for barriers to be used by any businesses? I just want to make sure, Commissioner, that we have a policy for all and not just for one business.
So MEDC got a grant, and they bought the barriers, we just install them, so.
So-
And they,
Hello. So during COVID, we offered all the barriers to any downtown business that wanted to do outdoor dining. You saw Wellies use them for a while, Lost Shoe used them, Flying Dreams. We didn't have anybody else that wanted to utilize them, but we did purchase and construct the covers that you saw on top of the barriers. We worked very closely with Jeff Cook at the time, the building commissioner, and the site plan review committee to make sure that they were safe and that everything was being done according to code.
So, but now the barriers are under the DPW responsibility, according to what I'm reading here?
They just placed them.
we house them and we place them.
Okay, so that's where my question on liability comes. If it was to fail, who is liable, or can we be exempted from liability? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Orm. I believe Councilor Preciado had a question.
It's been so long, I forgot. So to Mark, to Councilor Orm's point, we should look into liability of the barriers. But I would argue that the city has done quite a bit to help other businesses out, expand their outdoor dining, expanding the sidewalk space for them to have built-in outdoor dining. So I don't think it would be fair to say that, why should we do this for one business when we're not doing it for others, when we actually have done it all down Main Street. That's all. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may, I would just ask that we create a policy. Because what if you get 5 businesses wanting the same barriers? I think the city needs to create some type of policy, just so it's there. First business in gets the barriers, something like that.
I think we would defer to MEDC on that.
We've just never.
We take our direction from that. They tell us when they've talked to them what's come up, and we have these certain amount of barriers, so.
I will say, we've never had an issue.
Okay.
It was, when we started it, the barriers were only offered to downtown businesses because we were trying to increase the outdoor dining in the downtown area. At the time, we did have other restaurants that did do the outdoor seating, not Lalos, the Mexican restaurant that's in that. Yep, I think it's La Tapatia. Did that. Ember and Alma is now the name of it, but they did it back then. I forget what the old name was, but they also did the outdoor dining. So we had a number of people, Aviva, 110 Grill, people all over the city were doing it, but they didn't need the barriers in the same way that you needed on Main Street. They had parking lots, they had areas that were not as exposed as the Main Street down here.
Okay, well, thank you for your answers. Again, just concerned if we're noted here in these bullet points, I just want to make sure we're not liable. It talks about the barriers in the DPW. So, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Roby?
Thank you. I didn't look it up, but I believe the city council at one point had approved outdoor dining on Main Street. So this business is not on Main Street, nor would any other business that wants to use city sidewalks be able to just put outdoor dining out there. That's why they originally came to the city for a license to encroach, which I still believe we need to make sure they have going forward and add not only sidewalk, but the 4 parking spaces that they're asking. The original license to encroach had that the licensee agrees to indemnify and hold harmless the city, their officers, employees, and agents from and against all suits, actions, or claims, civil or criminal, or any character brought because of any injury or damage received or sustained resulting from the existence or obstruction abutting the license area. So it's in the details that were provided by the solicitor at the time, which I don't remember who was the solicitor in 19, but I'm sure that that same language would be there. This particular document also has that they're not allowed to use any of the tables after 10 p.m. So if, in fact, you are open inside till 11, if this is repeated, unless it gets changed, that would still be in place. Other than that, I don't have a problem asking the solicitor to bring a document that would have basically this same document from 2019 with the addition of the parking spaces and the addition of the barricades provided by DPW into the document so that then we could vote on that.
I mean, it is a little different, right? I mean, the license to encroach in 2019 was just on the sidewalk.
Correct, and now you want the parking spaces, which I don't think any of us have an issue with. We just want to
but
make sure.
I think, Counselor Oram, with the barriers, that does bring up a little bit of a legal issue, right? So if someone were to hit a barrier and the barrier failed, that makes our business liable for that. Like I said, I would take all responsibility for all the people, and I mean, a car could come and hit someone on the sidewalk at any point. So I don't see that the barriers provide an additional liability. Someone hitting the barrier, wouldn't they be liable?
I think the issue is that by you're agreeing to this license, regardless of whether it's the person hitting the barrier, the city is not part of any kind of claims. The city would be held not liable for anything that happens by granting you this encroachment, is all that we care about. We're out of the picture completely. So it would be between you and the driver of the vehicle fighting it out. And I don't think any of us or the city solicitor would allow the encroachment into the parking without that liability included.
And now that you're saying it, Counselor, I believe that the barriers that were offered downtown were anybody that was using city property. I think that's how we did it.
Yeah, because they were encroaching on the street where the sidewalk they can use.
Correct.
Without the city council having anything to say about it.
Right.
And we gave a license to encroach to another restaurant on Main Street because they actually were putting they wanted to, they never did, they wanted to put tables and chairs on city property that was near the staircase that goes up to the street behind downtown. So we gave them that license. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Roby. Councilor Ossing?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So 2 points. In 2009, to Councilor Roby, you don't have to be on Main Street. The order that we passed in 2009 states starting from what was then Papa John's, located at 8 Hilda Street, up to 280 Main Street, all the downtown Marlboro establishments. So I think I consider you downtown, just by my, just because they're off of Main Street, they're downtown. You're not going uptown to go to the Flying Dreams. So
then
this
why
was the 2009 order that we approved.
Then why did we approve a license to encroach if in fact we passed that order?
Because this just said where you can go outdoor dining. You then have to go apply for a license, which is what my next point is. If the committee feels that the license is what they want, motion to, if it's to approve, send it to then ask the solicitor to put it in proper formats, similar to the one that Councilor Roby's been talking about, with any added things that you would like to see. Parking spaces on Main Street, the barricades, whatever else you want. That's what you would do. And then Flying Dreams gets to have the space that they're looking for, and the city has the protections they need because we've done it in the past. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, President Ossing. If there's no further discussion, I will entertain a motion at this time.
Madam Chair.
Councilor Fricillo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Move to, similar to what President Austin just said, I would move to approve the license and send it to the legal department pursuant to the parking spaces and the barricades, that language being added.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Fricillo. A motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Vote carries 3-0. Thank you. Do I have to? Where will I go? Just at the end, right? Okay. Thank you. At this time, I would like to take up order number 25-100-9417, communication from Melinda Gallagher on behalf of La Choux Brewing and Roasting regarding request to expand outdoor seating to include public areas, including the new plaza behind City Hall. I'll invite Melinda up to the well, and I'm going to start just by reading the letter that you submitted. So on March 28th, 2025, Dear Marlborough City Council, I'm going to put my for that one. With the warm weather approaching and the completion of the Weed Street and City Hall Courtyard reconstruction project, we would like to request an extended use of outdoor seating for La Choux Brewing and Roasting Company to utilize this new space. Since opening our doors in May 2019, we have focused our business on being a community player and creating experiences for Marlborough residents and visitors to the city. We envision this newly renovated area behind City Hall as a vibrant area with live music, food trucks, farmers markets, and activities such as yoga to bring our community together. To do that, we would need to be able to utilize the space under our current license without needing to obtain one-day pouring permits, which are limited to 30 per year. We are requesting use of the sidewalk area by the Court Street Garage 7 days a week for seating, as we have used in the past under the pandemic extended outdoor dining. We are also requesting use of Weed Street between Court Street and the end of City Hall Courtyard, including City Hall Courtyard, specifically between Fridays at 4 p.m. through Sundays at 8 p.m. on a weekly basis. We understand that many people access City Hall via the rear entrance on the weekends, and we will ensure that there is always a clear path from the parking garage to the rear building entrance. We also will make sure there is ADA accessibility at all times. We will use road barriers to close Weed Street to traffic and stanchions, is that how you say that?
Yes.
Thank you. Or the like, where there is not already a natural barrier for no alcohol beyond this point signage, to ensure beer is consumed only in the licensed area. The area would be constantly monitored by members of the La Choux team to ensure proper use and compliance of the space, as is typically done in the tap room. All trash would be removed and disposed of by La Choux. We thank you for your consideration and are happy to answer any questions you may have. Best regards, Melinda Gallagher of La Choux Brewing and Roasting Company. Welcome, Melinda.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know we've received this letter, and I just want to allow you to share anything else before I open it up.
Sure. So for, again, what Dave was mentioning about COVID, there was temporary extended outdoor dining during that time where we were granted access to close Weed Street Friday through Sunday, and also use what was bark mulch prior. It's now beautiful pavers. It looks great out there. And we also were using 4 of the parking spots that were the old parking spots before the road work was completed. So we're looking to be able to continue that, but also I think most of you know we like to do a lot of events downtown, do things that will bring our community together, and with that we have this beautiful new courtyard that we hope is going to get utilized all the time, and we want to help make that happen. So the reason for including that courtyard in this application is so that we don't need to go forward with applying for those one-day permits on a consistent basis. Again, they're limited to 30, so we couldn't do nearly as much as we've been able to do in the past if we had to go for our one-day permits. I wrote an email earlier just to kind of clarify, we would need over 70 one-day permits if we were to execute everything we did the prior years.
Thank you, Melinda. Okay, so we did receive the email, and I believe everybody has a copy of that was on their desk. And now I would like to open it up to members of Legislative and Legal Committee with any questions, comments. Councilor Fricillo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here. I have a couple of questions, and really one of the biggest concerns of mine is the road closure, albeit very small. I know that on weekends, a lot of times, and I've just seen this in terms of coming back and forth to City Hall, people will park along the street, hop out, run into City Hall, vice versa. So that kind of thing will no longer be available. I know that you're opening at 4 o'clock. City Hall is open from 4 to 5 on that Friday. So I also worry about people using that road to go in and out during that. I know it's a 1 hour window. I know I'm being very picky here, but that 1 hour, I've had an elderly neighbor of mine who I've driven down there, and she can't make it from the parking garage, and she can't go through the front entrance. So I have some concerns about the road closure itself. Aside from that, everything that's existing that you're looking to re-up, I'm absolutely in favor of. I don't have any concerns there. So I'll let other members of the committee and the council go from here. But my main kind of question is, how amendable are you to the road closure portion of this?
I mean, we are very, we understand that city property is not our property. So we are very willing to work with the city on whatever you're willing to let us use. And if that means shifting the timeframes, we're absolutely open to that too.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Roby.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I may be a minority, but I personally object to the ability in the past and going forward of closing Weed Street on Saturdays. We don't close Main Street on Saturdays. I don't understand why we're closing another city street on Saturdays. So that's at least my opinion, and whether anybody else feels the same way, I guess we'll wait to see. I guess I also, although we didn't really have a whole lot to do with the design of the courtyard, we approved the money. If we did it again, I would certainly change the design. But it's the city courtyard, and to me, it should be used for city events, not other businesses' events. They have their own space. So I know you're asking to be able to use it. There's nothing that says somebody from Lost Shoe or from Wellies or from anywhere can't take their food and go sit in the courtyard behind City Hall at any time of the day or, I guess, night. But I have a problem with the granting of this for 70 events throughout the year that are not really city events, they're your establishment-specific events. So that's...
I will say some of them are, yes, they're under the Lost Shoe umbrella currently, but, the farmers market's one, we do host that. I mean, I'm the market manager. It will be moving into the Downtown Village Association, so we've tried really hard to separate that from a Lost Shoe event. We want it to feel like a city event, not a brewery event. We want it to be very inclusive and welcoming of everyone. So that's just one example. A lot of these events that we do organize, we're from Marlboro. We want to see these events happen downtown. I think that's a little selfish of myself creating something through my business, but it's for the community at the end of the day. So I just wanted to throw that out there that, I understand we are a business, but we do these things not always for the business, but for the community instead.
And I have no objection to anything you do on a Sunday because you can shut the street down. So shut the street down, have events. It's the Saturday part that I personally, and I know I'm not alone. I have had complaints from residents, why can't I go down Weed Street on a Saturday during the summer? So.
Yeah, and I do want to say the farmers market, this is outside of any type of liquor license. The farmers market use of public space has already been approved for Saturdays from June 14th through October 4th, so that area will be closed.
And I don't understand why the farmers market can't be on this area behind City Hall so the street can still be used, and...
It would be significantly smaller. We'd probably have to cut 60% of vendors.
Yeah. Then maybe that's a discussion for next year's farmers market. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Roby. I just wanted to share some of my notes before I open it up to the non-voting members. And so from my standpoint, I agree with Councilor Roby that, the use that we've seen previously, I agree that we could continue that. with the newness of the plaza that is here, and it's actually going to be dedicated to Gold Star families, and that has a big significance for me, just out of my respect for veterans and especially Gold Star families of our city. I really want to see the dedication happen. I want to see more of what might happen organically now that it's just open. I'm afraid that if we were to go forward with the piece to allow the plaza to be utilized in this way, for me, and I know this is not your intention, I know it's not, but as I was considering this, it feels more exclusive than inclusive, and so for those reasons, I'm not in support of utilizing the plaza and expanding the use. And now I'll open it up to other comments. Councilor Oram?
Thank you. Thank you, Melinda. Actually, I was at your place when you were having your, what, 5th anniversary?
Sixth.
6th? Wow. And I understand the need for controlling the front of your business. We just had another business wants to have some control on the side of their business. The question, I'm sorry, I'm on these barriers, is the barriers. I used to do marathon security in Ashland. Once we had the issue on the marathon, we got very serious about barriers. My question to you is, what type of barriers are you proposing to close off? I've seen your barriers, but
Yep.
what, are you proposing anything safer than what's being presently used?
I mean, with the road, if it's a temporary road closure for the weekend, we can't put anything too permanent or significant in that space because it does need to move out Sunday night. So what we've been using are just plastic road barriers, kind of similar to, any of our big downtown events, we use those types of barriers as well. So that's what we have used in the past.
I would probably ask that the committee refer this to the police chief. I don't want to sound like the expert here, but I've had experience in this. What can be used, but again, it's up to the police chief, is large trucks to stop any type of car from going through that barrier.
Sure.
And that's a concern of mine, and that's why I was asking the previous applicant about their barriers. I would ask that this be referred to the police chief, at least on the barrier part. On the part that I did with the other applicant, I want to compliment you. You are really making that part of our downtown vital. It's changed so much. But at the same time, we have a new area behind our plaza, which I agree with some of the councilors' comments. We have to be careful how we go about this because, as I mentioned previously, just with the barriers, if we're going to give them to one business, are we opening up to all businesses? And it would be the same for the plaza. So I hold reservations for that, but I don't want to hold them completely tying you down. I would like to see maybe something that could work for the city, both for the use of our plaza for everyone, as well as the use for your business and the farmer's market, because I agree, the farmer's market, I think it's a great aspect for the city, a great opportunity. So again, and then the other question, I just had one other question, Madam Chair. It's the time span. It doesn't say if it's just for this year or next year. Are you looking to have this without a time span, or is this for this year you're requesting it?
We would like to continue this as long as we can, but again, we're open to working with the city and what the city feels they're comfortable with.
Yeah, and you answered my questions about trash, as I asked you. I want to be fair to both applicants.
Yep.
But thank you for your 2 letters. And again, I have some reservations on the barriers. And as previously mentioned by the committee members, how much use does one business get, and does that offer opportunity to other businesses as well as the Star families and so forth? So those all have to, I think, be taken into consideration.
Sure, absolutely, and thank you. I did put in my my letter today, I just want to be clear, there is a use of public space application that does have to be submitted, which that's how we've always done our bigger events, going through the use of public space application, then submitting a noise variance if it's required, and those do get signed off by all departments in the city. So, we would not anticipate stopping that process whatsoever. We would still, if we're planning to use the courtyard for something, we would still plan to put a use of public space application in. If someone else is already using it that day, then great, someone else is utilizing it, which we're hoping more people will. I know in the past, there's been very few events out back in the courtyard, and I'm hoping now that it is a little bit more usable, that we will see more of those events happening. But we would still, regardless, be putting in a use of public space application.
And I appreciate that. You wrote that in this letter, when nothing else is planned. So maybe we can sharpen that up a little bit.
Sure.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Oram. Councilor Doucette?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. To follow on what Councilor Oram was talking about, the blocking the traffic on Saturdays, I think, has been raised concern multiple times. I think that's an issue. As far as the plaza behind the City Hall, it's new. The city really doesn't know how to use it yet, to be honest. I mean, I'm not seeing people saying, oh, we got these plans on how to use it and stuff, but it's a great plaza to be utilized. I think that having you coming as first move advantage to take advantage of it, I think at least shows traffic in that space to show that it's usable. To have people, it's one thing to say, oh, we have this great plaza, but you can't use it, no one else can. But I think at least having someone go in to demonstrate its use, for a year, by the way, but just something like that to show interaction with the plaza, that the plaza's getting use, I think is important in this point in its age, because it's really less than a year old, okay? But having said that, I think, there's a great performance corner to set up for acoustic or small bands and stuff, I'm not seeing anything within the city to how to manage that. I think that if we make this agreement with you, there probably needs to be some conditions as much as that if the city, if, you have the general case, right? If the city decides to override your use on a particular day, we're allowed to do that. And say, no, you can't use it on this day because something else came in.
Sure.
Okay, so I think that's amendable so that if we get our act together over the next couple of months and start using it more and more often, then it's more events, different events going on. You're the backup. Fine with that, and even if there is events there, you're right next to it anyway, so it's still good, So I don't vote on this panel. I think that with proper adjustments in the wording, I think this can actually be very effective and useful for the city, at least demonstrating, what's possible back there. So.
And we do, with the farmer's market already, the use of space already being approved, we do know the Marlborough Police Department has their canine fundraiser in September, and we've already talked to them about how we're going to break the market down half an hour early. They're going to help us break down. We're going to help them set up so that they can start on time too. So we definitely are aware of some of those events that are coming up, and working together to make sure that they're both successful.
Yeah. And thank you for everything you do with the city, too. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Doucette. Councilor Preciado had his hand up, and then I'll go to Councilor Vital.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Melinda, for being here. We know each other very well. I actually was at your establishment the first day you opened, so it's been a long road. We work together all the time. Through our artist collective, and we always have art shows in your establishment. So I appreciate everything you do for the community and for the city and to bring everyone together. Unfortunately, I do agree with Councilor Brown in terms of using that space. It should be a communal space. It should stay with the city. It should stay open to the public. You're requesting for 70, or you said you had 70 events in previous years in that. And
not necessarily just the courtyard.
Okay, I was going to say. Well,
so that includes Friday through Sunday, where we just had right in front of our tap room closed off, and we had live music right out front there.
Gotcha.
So that includes those dates too. In addition to the farmers market, when we did have it behind City Hall previously, and then some of our other events like the Halloween Street Fair and Turkey Trot and those types of things.
Okay. The farmers market is great, by the way, but I am glad that it's peeling away from LaShu and moving towards more centralized organization. But Yeah, I cannot support this in those terms. I would like to see the space being utilized by the public more so. And if that doesn't happen in the second year of having it, maybe we can look and see what else we can collaborate with Law Shoe and maybe some other businesses there that would like to have an extended permit throughout the year.
Thank you, Councilor Preciado. And I also just wanted to bring up another thing that I had been considering, because one of the issues is that one-day pouring permits are limited to 30 per year. Maybe that would be something, down the line we could take a look at. If that feels restrictive for you, it might feel restrictive for other businesses. So, any other questions or comments? Oops, I'm so sorry, Councilor Vital.
I'm over here in the corner, people forget. My colleagues and I might differ on things. We talk about downtown, and we want to bring businesses downtown, but then we keep putting up barriers and telling businesses, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that. And I wonder why businesses don't come downtown. Law Shoe, since they've been in here, has been one of the best businesses in this town. They have supported Sweats for Vets. They have supported a town-wide coat drive for 4 or 5 years in a row. They do Toys for Tots. I mean, I would have to sit here for 20 minutes trying to list all the things that Law Shoe does for our city. They're asking for this little thing, and we're making it sound like they have to jump through a hoop. Try it out. Leave the patio open for other things. What is there, like a line of people trying to get in the back? No one's even asked for that. It's been out there for a year. No one's even tried to get it back there. If Law Shoe can bring business downtown, bring traffic downtown, that traffic is going to eat at other restaurants, that traffic is going to buy clothing, that crowd is going to make Marlboro a vibrant downtown. I am overwhelming support of this, and the Gallaghers, who, by the way, were born and raised here in town, if it's not working out, they'll be the first to pull it back, if you know anything about the Gallaghers. So I'm not voting on this committee, but I am strongly in favor of allowing them the opportunity to expand their business in that patio for the time being. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Vital. And I would just like to say, I am not at all saying that, the Gallaghers aren't reputable or the business does so many things for the city. I 100% agree with that. But it's more of like, I wouldn't be able to just say, maybe this wonderful business owner comes in, but they didn't grow up in Marlboro and they don't have Gallagher last name to fall back on, but they could be equally as, good of people doing great things for the city. And I'm just trying to look at this through a lens of really just an equitable situation for use of the plaza. And I understand wanting to drive traffic down there, absolutely. I don't feel like we've had a full season yet where the plaza's been fully constructed, so I don't feel like we really know yet what will organically happen. I saw Councilor Doucette had his hand up.
I was going to wait for you to finish. Sorry, I didn't realize.
Oh, no, I'm done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. I mean, there seems to be disconnects going on here, because there's, big disagreements on the approaches here. But, it's a new plaza, right? It's less than a year old, right? 2024 is marked on it. It was completed the end of last year. So this is a new thing for the city, and I'm thinking for the next couple of months, the summer of '25, what are we going to do with it? Because it's late in the game for anyone to plan to use it, except these guys came up with the plan, okay? And for the year, if they're agreeable so that we can give it to them, but if we want to override particular days to do other events, they're fine with that. And I think that can be addressed in the wording. So, they're the fallback that if we don't have anything else planned, they can do it for the rest of the season, okay? Next year, it's another game. because we'll see who shows up and who, are there other people competing for the patio, for this space? There may be. So, they may get 3 or 4 companies coming in and saying, we want to reserve a month, or we want to reserve this. But so far, we only got one this year, and I think we should run with this so that there's activity back there. Because if it's not, it's going to be a quiet plaza for the summer, and that's just going to be quiet. And I'd rather see buzz, rather see activity there of any type, okay? And if someone else comes in and they want to do a concert, or something like that, because there's a great place for a concert, some present, then have them work with the city so that we can still reserve it. It's not exclusive to them. They're just like the backstop. If nothing else is done, they can take, they can play with it. But I think this is, for the first year, I think this is great opportunity so people can recognize what the courtyard can do. And next year, it's a different game. So I think we got to focus on this year, but we got to make sure there's activity back there. And if they're not going to do activity, then where's that activity going to come from? Because we need buzz, that's a beautiful courtyard, and we need buzz there to show how good it is. So, sorry, I'll get off the soapbox.
Thank you, Councilor Doucette.
No, I've already spoken, so go ahead.
President Nossing?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well said, both Councilors Doucette and Councilor Vital. Melinda, last weekend you used the courtyard. Can you just describe the process to what you had to do to get the courtyard for last weekend?
Yes, so last weekend, months ago, we put in a use of public space application. We plan our events, I know when our anniversary is going to be next year, right? I know when our events next year are going to be already. So we put the use of public space permit in many months in advance. We put our one-day pouring permit with the licensing board in many months in advance. And then if we're having live music outside, which we did, we put in a noise variance as well. And that all goes through the online city systems, gets approval. So that is kind of the norm for whenever we do one of these big events that is outside of our normal liquor license.
So if I were just to paraphrase, you go up to the mayor's office, I know you do it online, but you basically ask the mayor, say, hey, Mayor, can we use the courtyard? And the mayor's, I'm sure there's not a calendar, but the mayor probably says yes, because no one else is asking for the courtyard, and...
We have never had any of our applications declined because there was something else going on.
So I guess I would recommend to the legislative and legal is a minimum approve the sidewalk in the area adjacent to the garage. I think that's a no-brainer. We've done it in the past. And I would try for the year with the caveat, and you can have Jason put the wording in, that if someone comes up and says they want it, the law will abide by it or make some kind of caveat. The legal's smart enough to come up with the words, and I'm sure Melinda's willing to accommodate that. But to be using it, because if we say no, what's going to happen next week? There's nothing down at the courtyard, because no one's got to permit it. Now, will they? And if what Melinda does works in magic and people come flocking to want to use the common, well, we owe Melinda something. I'm not sure what that's going to be, but that's good for the city. So I would hope the L&L will look favorably as a minimum approving what's on the sidewalk and across the way, and then allowing this to start with the caveat that the solicitor can work with that says, they've got it, and they can use it, and if they don't, if someone else wants it, lost shoe knows they're going to get bumped. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, President Nossing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I stated before, I have no objection to Court Street being closed, or Weed Street being closed on a Sunday. My issue is, and it's irrelevant because the mayor, as stated, approves the use permit that has been approved by mayors before him. So Weed Street is closed. And I believe Weed Street last year was closed every single Saturday throughout the summer.
Well, it was closed all summer due to the road work, so yeah, there was no access down there at all.
To say that nothing happens downtown or nothing will happen is not true. Does it make them have to go through hoops? Possibly. And I certainly agree with Councilor Ossing. I believe the request was to use the sidewalk by the Court Street Garage 7 days a week for seating, as we've used in the past. Again, I don't know who designed that Weed Street extension to remove parking and have less parking spaces, but it's certainly not set up for parking now. So the fact that it's set up and tables are already there and being used, I don't have a problem with those continuing. So I certainly could move to grant them permission to use the sidewalk area by the Court Street Garage 7 days a week for seating. My concern is the rest of the request, to use Weed Street between Court Street and the end of City Hall Courtyard, including City Hall Courtyard, specifically between Fridays at 4 p.m. through Sundays. If that said specifically on Sundays, I would be fine with it. Which would then mean if they want to continue with Saturdays, they're going to continue doing what they're doing and getting their use permit. I know I brought this up when we did the budget, that recreation needs to be, there needs to be a person like there was before to have somebody who would be doing live music, food trucks, farmers markets, and activities at the courtyard. We don't have somebody doing that. So yes, it's not being used and will continue to stay there. It will be used, I would guess, this summer, as it typically is for the city employee luncheon. I'm betting, and except for a few other occasions that have happened in the past, that it's not going to be used on a regular basis. So I'm okay keeping it like it is. I mean, I'm not okay, but I don't have a whole lot to say because the mayor has the ability to grant those use applications, and unless we say you can't shut Weed Street down on Saturdays, those will continue, I'm guessing. So at this point, I'm going to move to approve the use of the sidewalk area by Court Street Garage 7 days a week for seating by Lost Shoe. And if anybody else wants to add something else as a separate vote?
Thank you, Councilor Roby. I will second your motion, but there is still some discussion. I saw Councilor Preciado's hand up.
Point of order, can you restate the motion? I wasn't clear what you're approving.
Move to approve the use of the sidewalk area by the Court Street Garage 7 days a week for seating by Lost Shoe.
So that would be as it has been permitted in the past? Or
Yes.
As current use?
Well, yeah, I didn't see there was a need to add that additional part of it, as we have used in the past during the pandemic, extended outdoor dining.
I want to clarify too that that did include the closure of Weed Street as well for that front of the taproom area.
So point of information.
Is it nothing?
So again, the committee can do I'm just trying to gauge the opinions of the gang around the room. This takes 6 votes when it gets to the full council. When it gets to the council, I'm sure there's going to be amendments because I'm hearing divided opinions. Now, whether there's 6 votes is a different topic, but just so that the councils don't feel like something is or won't happen, you'll get another swing at the pitch, whatever L&L determines.
Thank you, President Ossing. I was going to say something similar, that the committee is comprised of myself, Councilor Roby, and Councilor Fucillo, and what will happen after this vote is that we will just be sending our recommendation of committee to the full council, but then the full council will take it up. Further discussion will happen, further amendments could be made. So with that, Councilor Preciado, did you have?
Sorry, can I just make a clarification?
Absolutely.
To me, this has nothing to do with the closure of Weed Street. Just like people crossing from from the parking garage to City Hall or anywhere else. If people choose to sit in the sidewalk area by Court Street Garage by taking a drink from inside Lost Shoe and going and sitting there, or anybody else who chooses to sit there, they're doing it at their own risk of traffic coming down Weed Street and crossing a open street as they do so, unless it's on a Saturday when you've closed the street. It's not Main Street. But that's...
Counselor Fricillo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. In listening to the discussion, and obviously with my opening statement, I am also in agreement with Councilors Vital, Doucette, and President Ossing. I have no issues with the proposed additional use for the simple fact that I hear councilors, especially during election season, we get asked about downtown Marlboro and what we're going to do to revitalize it. And oftentimes the answer that comes back is we have to invest in the infrastructure of downtown that can then allow for the small businesses and the medium-sized businesses to do what they can to make downtown a better place. And this, to me, is a perfect example of that. And so for me to pass up an opportunity like this, I think would be going back on all the things that I talk about, especially during election season. So I personally feel that, although there might be little things, like, for example, where I think maybe it should be 5 p.m. on Fridays and not 4, those are things that we can talk about on the floor, when this goes to the committee. But I would not be in favor of the motion that's before L&L currently. And I do support kind of the all or nothing approach, I guess is what I'll call it. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Counselor Fricillo. Counselor Preciado had been waiting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did want to respond to Counselor Vital and Counselor Doucette that Lost Shoe will have business on weekends, whether they have the courtyard or not. They're a very popular spot. People love coming to your establishment. They love coming to your concerts when they have them. They love coming to your markets when they have them. You will always be busy, and you will always have the support of the city. And frankly, the permit is a bit excessive, I think. You can go through the process just like everyone else, and you will get approved. Typically you do. I mean, I don't think you've ever been denied. But I think if we do this, it does set precedents for other businesses to say, hey, Lost Shoe did it, why don't we apply for, 70 permits throughout the year? I would not want to see that happen with other businesses. We have a set path to do this, and it's already set in place. So I don't know why we're going to be granting special access to a different business. And again, that's nothing against you guys. It would be the same with any other business that came before the council. I would feel the same way. You will be bringing in revenue, right? I'm not worried about that whatsoever. Your farmers markets will bring in revenue. Anything the city, Councilor Roby, I do hope that we get somebody in that position that will be able to create events for the city and be able to utilize spaces like that, like our parks, like our courtyards, like our main streets. So I appreciate your efforts, and I think, what you do does bring a lot of business and people to Main Street and to your establishment and to the city. But I just want to make sure that everyone is on equal footing with this.
Thank you, Counselor Preciado. Counselor Oram.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just going to wrap up where I was. We need an event coordinator in this city. If the mayor's office is doing it, so be it. Let them set up a schedule. I would suggest if this language gets tightened up so it's open to all, first come, first serve, even on the event day. If you scheduled it Monday and someone came in Tuesday, there needs to be a procedure. I would ask the mayor's office to address that, since they're doing it right now, and tighten up this language a little bit so it's an advantage to you and to other businesses, just so we have a level playing field. I would ask that the barriers be approved by the police chief and that it be a 1-year allowance at this point. And we'll see how it all unfolds, because I'll be honest, I love that picture they had in the basement level when we walked in. They showed a food truck and how the facilities would be used in our plaza. So again, and thank you for your statement about other people trying to get in, that, I think we at this level need to set up something so it can be an advantage to you and other businesses if they so wish. But I'm siding towards approving it with the language tightened up a little bit to leave it open for all businesses. And I am concerned about 4 o'clock, especially on a weekday. I'd rather see it 6 o'clock or 5:30, because City Hall's still in business at that time. So, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Oram. Councilor Doucette?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So, I understand the issue of precedence, but the courtyard in the back is a complete new precedence for the city as far as space goes. We never had something like this before. And for non-enclosed space, I think it's the only one there. For enclosed space, we have the library, but that's a different beast. We need to show activity in the courtyard. And if it's only there, the argument seems to be that, well, we'll open it up for everyone, but no one's showing up except for them. So let's give it to them. They're willing to be the backstop. If other people come in and start saying, well, we want to use it too, we can swap in the new people and stuff and work it through that way. But we need to show activity, because once people see it being done there, then people are like, oh, maybe we can do this too, and then new businesses do come down. But if they don't see people doing it, no one knows it's possible, okay? And I think that that's an important part of getting traffic into that courtyard. And thank you for at least proposing it, by the way.
I would just like to add that I don't feel like myself, Councilor Preciado, Councilor Roby are suggesting that LaShu may not use this space during times they might want to. It's more of just following the established permitting process that to go through, and that any business could also go through. And I do want to see the plaza utilized, but I'm supporting following what we already have, and I'm in support of Councilor Roby's motion. If there is any further discussion, I'll take it now. Councilor Doucette.
Okay, so the reason why I'm such adamant about this is because of the limitation of pouring licenses. Okay, if we do this as a group set,
And that's why I said I would be open to visiting the idea of how many pouring licenses.
sure, but I'm not sure if that's a state law or something controlled by the city at this point.
State law, thank you.
Which then we can't. So, I mean, this is the isms we have to live with as counselors. We need to work around this. But I think showing the activity is huge right now, because this is the first season that the courtyard is there. And next year, it's a different game. But, let's give them a try. They're trusted within the community, and they're willing to work with us, and it gets traffic into the, regardless or not, they're going to have business going, and there'll be people hanging around there. The question is whether or not it's organized or not. So, and I think people need to show that this courtyard can be used effectively by businesses, because they got to show, it's got to be something that is shown on a regular basis for people, businesses to sink in, saying, oh, this is out there on a regular basis. It's not just like onesie twosie, or, heaven forbid, if you got to fill out 70 applications for this. And, I'm on her side as much as the paperwork doesn't necessarily, it makes it more complex, but doesn't necessarily get you at the right end, the right ending. So, because if she fills out all 70 saying she wants the application, then what happens if someone else wants to do it and it's too late because they already filled out all the applications? This way, we set up the application, we can override, it makes it more flexible. I think in the long run, it's more beneficial for the city by doing it this way. For the year, that's it.
Thank you, Councilor Doucette. Councilor Roby?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We could probably continue debating this the rest of the night. My motion has nothing to do with the use of the courtyard, so I believe it's been seconded. I would move the question.
Okay, thank you. So a motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor? All those opposed? The vote carries 2-1. I'll entertain a motion. Councilor
Madam
Petrillo?
Chair, motion to adjourn.
A motion has been made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion to adjourn carries 3-0. We are adjourned at 6:48.
Will start in 1 minute. Good evening. I will call to order the Finance Committee meeting on May 14, 2025 at 6:52 p.m. We have 3 items on the agenda this evening. 1, a communication from Mayor regarding the proposed tax increment financing agreement, TIF, with Greenland Realty Partners. We also have a communication from the Mayor regarding grant acceptances for various projects. And then the end of the evening, we have a communication from the Mayor regarding a proposed amendment to City Code Chapter 125 Personnel, Section 6, salary schedule relative to various leadership positions in the Department of Public Works. I'll begin with the first item on the agenda this evening, which is order number 25-100-9410, communication from the Mayor, proposed tax increment financing, which is a TIF agreement with Great Land Realty Partners and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for the proposed construction and leasing of a new crime laboratory for the Massachusetts State Police at 100 Martinangelo Drive. I'll begin by reading the letter submitted by the Mayor. Dear Council President Ossing and councilors, enclosed for your review is a draft resolution and information concerning a draft tax increment financing TIF agreement concerning the above referenced project. The property owner is proposing the construction and leasing of a new crime laboratory for the Massachusetts State Police. The proposed project includes building of an approximately 200,000 square foot building at the property for lease and operation of a new state-of-the-art Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory, including investment of approximately $200 million and 300 new permanent full-time jobs, 250 which will be created by relocating existing jobs elsewhere in Massachusetts, and 50 of which will be new permanent full-time jobs to the project area. Enclosed, please find supporting information concerning the TIF agreement, project, and draft resolution. Please refer this matter to the Finance Committee as we are continuing to work with all parties on finalizing the form of the draft TIF agreement and intend to provide the draft of the agreement in advance of the future Finance Committee meeting. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, J. Christian Dumas, Mayor, which the Mayor did finalize and the City Solicitor sent over the draft. So good evening and welcome to the City of Marlborough. Obviously very exciting to have you. It's a nice piece of the puzzle, but I'll let you do the introductions and you can do the review of the TIF, please.
Great, thank you. Hello, my name is Kevin Sheehan. I'm with Greatland Realty Partners, and I'm also joined by Kara Must from Greatland and Katie Macedo from the Department of Capital Asset Maintenance and Maintenance. That's a mouthful. From the state of Massachusetts. And we have a short presentation to tell you a little bit more about the project. So again, Greatland is the owner and developer of the project. We'll be acting as the landlord to DCAM, which is, as an agency of Massachusetts, will be the tenant in the building. And then the user agency is the state police crime lab. So that's sort of the different players. If you go to the next slide, please. This is just a quick overview of Greatland. We've been in front of the council before in the past. We've been invested in the city of Marlborough for about 5 years with our property at the campus. Our larger portfolio is about 2 million square feet in the greater Boston area of commercial properties, both office and lab buildings. We're proud that we're very focused on, being customer focused, owner and developer, and to some of the larger public companies here in Massachusetts, including Hologic and BJ's here locally, and are excited about this opportunity to work with the state. Go to the next slide, please. So for anyone that doesn't know, the campus is located here in Marlborough on the west side of town. It's very accessible to the highways, 495 and near Route 20. If you go to the next slide, this shows an aerial view of the existing campus. So the buildings that you see with the white roofs in the middle of the oval it's an existing 500,000-foot office that is the headquarters, again, for Hologic and BJ's, and we have a few other clients in occupancy as well. And then you can see outlined in red to the north side of the site is the proposed site of the new state crime lab, and Martin Angelo Drive is the road that cuts in between the existing campus building and the new development. You go to the next slide, we have a site plan. So this is looking down on the site, just sort of a very preliminary plan that shows the access off of Martin Angelo Drive and the layout of the building and the parking on the site. And so, as the councilor said in the introduction, it's approximately 200,000 square feet. It's a 4-story building. We're going through the design process now in conjunction with DCAM and the state police. We've got more detailed site plans. In fact, we met with the city site plan review committee last week just on a preliminary basis to review progress with them. And we are here tonight to present the TIF agreement, and we're hoping to get that approved. And then going forward, our schedule would be to complete design and permitting of the project by the end of this year, start construction early next year, with the goal of having the crime lab open and operating at the site in early 2028. So.
Thank you for the introduction. I will open that to the finance team or any other councilors if they had any questions. Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for coming and presenting with us today. I was really excited when I initially saw this proposed state crime lab coming into the city, and when I first saw the TIF agreement, I said, a state crime, it all makes sense, you will be leasing the property to the state, and so that's why the TIF agreement would come into play. I see that there would be 300 jobs added to the city, 250 of them relocated, but then over the course of the TIF agreement, 50 new jobs would be created. I absolutely see the investment that you'd have in the city, and so for the TIF agreement, I am in support. I appreciate you bringing this into the city.
Thank you, Councilman. Good points. I'm in strong support of this. It's a vacant lot you will be building. That will be new growth for the city. Any talk of designing the building for any parking garage or anything like that that you know of?
Well, this building is designed to have surface parking that you can see on the site plan. For future further development on the site, we did do a parking garage in conjunction with the long-term lease to BJ's.
BJ's, exactly.
Because they had like extra parking needs.
Yes.
And so we do have the ability to do that for future development elsewhere on the site if needed.
All right, thank you. Councilor Orem.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for being here. If you were here on, it's a Monday night, you would realize our city is in financial crisis. We have seen increases...
Mr. Chairman, that is a blatantly false statement.
I didn't hear it.
We are not in a financial crisis.
Mr. Chair, I was on... May I continue? I wanted to introduce them to the city's finances. We just had our budget meeting on Monday. And indeed, we see our health insurance is going up. We see the schools in need, both our technical school and our high school. So with that said, it's difficult now, I represent the residents and businesses, to tell our residents I'm going to offer, as a city councilor, a TIF for 20 years. That's a long time. It's asking for a lot of reductions. I can't support 20 years. And following TIFs in the future, if we are in this type of situation with our finances, I will have issues with TIFs.
Now, I don't want to interrupt you, Councilor Orem. I know Meredith can maybe touch base on it.
She can talk about that.
This is also a little different because it's a low risk, no risk for the city, because this is part of the whole state process of having them.
Understand TIFs. They're getting 100% reduction in taxes the first year, 100% the second year.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, may I?
I understand TIFs. What I'm asking is, would they consider a reduction in the years? That was my question. I was trying to preface it with the issues going on, and that is my question.
Yeah, no, and I think this was drawn up with this language by the state of Massachusetts because they're trying to bring in businesses to communities.
Yeah. And Mr. Chair, we just heard, and thank you, we have great access here. We have water and sewer. We are a hot spot in Massachusetts, and I'm concerned that if we're not starting to look at these and maybe look at a reduction, then I can't support it. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that Councilor Orem might be mistaken about how TIF agreements work for the city. In my understanding, the city will not lose any tax revenue that we would be getting. Like, they're not getting a free ride for 2 years of no taxes. We would still be receiving what we would get had they not done the project, but they would be investing $200 million into this site, and so that $200 million that they're going to improve the site by is what they are going to receive the TIF agreement upon. So they're not going to be paying zero taxes, but on that $200 million improvement in any type of value that this property then takes on because of that $200 million improvement. That is what the TIF agreement is on. And so incrementally over the course of the TIF agreement, they will pay incrementally more and more on that increased value. So I just wanted to make sure that
Mr.
the way
Chair, if I
I
may?
understand it is correct. Thank you.
Just would like to respond to
Councilor?
that. That's understandable. That's new growth. That's going to help us out.
Absolutely.
Again, we're the star on the map. I hate to say this to someone from Massachusetts, but we are. We have the access, we have valuable property, and yes, we're going to get new growth, 200 million. But again, other businesses may come in and say, well, they got an exemption, why shouldn't we? It could create, especially now with our finances as they are, it could create an issue. And what I would say is at least ask if they're willing to negotiate to a 10-year versus a 20-year.
And I do want to reiterate what President Austin said. Our finances are well, $60 million to the levy limit.
Yes.
We're in great shape compared to other communities, so I don't want to...
No,
really
and I don't
say-
want to send that message. I just want to send the message that we sent out on Monday. We can expect taxes to go up for our residents. We definitely, and our businesses, from what we discussed on Monday with our budget. You're not part of it, apologize, but we have got to make sure we watch our finances. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilor Vital.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for coming to our fine city. But I suspect you've already done some negotiating with Ms. Harris and her staff and other folks from Marlboro. So the negotiations has already, I suspect, has already gone on for a few minutes, if not a couple hours. This is such a... We're the envy of you're right, Mr. Durham, we're the envy of the area. And we're the envy of the area because we're able to attract amazing projects like this one to come into our town. I am not just willing to vote the affirmative on this. I want to stand on my desk and clap and welcome them to our city. Thank you very much for thinking about us. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would echo Councilor Brown's points earlier, and I'm also in full support of this project. One thing that I think often gets overlooked when we're looking at a TIF is some of the building permits that go into something like this, a $200 million investment, and that goes right into our local receipts, which helps pay for our budget. So even at the most minimal level, right, these building permits that you guys will have to take out to construct this kind of thing goes into paying for the city budget, which I think is just another example on top of Councilor Brown's explanation of the actual TIF agreement to support something like this, because it does create that economic growth and helps our city in every sense financially to grow and become, you know, a stronger city. So I'm in full support, and I appreciate your time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good points, Councilor Fitzgerald. Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you folks for bringing this opportunity to the city. You know, we've gone through a couple of TIFs already this year, but I think that this one in particular, because it's involved with the state police and the state function, for it to be stretched out to 20 years equates to this being a very exceptional project. So I think because of that, I'm fine with this. If someone's saying, well, why are you doing the TIF for this business? It's like, it's the state police. Yeah. I mean, seriously, it's a good, you know, it helps with the community overall, it helps with the state overall. It becomes a marquee location for anyone involved in law enforcement in the state to have these guys come here, and at the end of the day, with all the money they're spending, we're start getting it back at the back end anyway. You know, 5 years later, we're down to 85, you know, real estate exemption percentage is 85%, so we're starting to build up some run rate that gets lower and lower over time. So I think that this is a great opportunity for the city. I think that the TIF, while exceptional, makes sense in this case. So I have no problems with that. My questions are really about renewable energy, solar, geothermal. You know, this is a large operational building that's being built state-of-the-art. How are you going to reduce your carbon footprint? And you don't not necessarily need the answer now, but I think we need to do something as far as conditions go with this, to say something about, you know, do what is possible to address reduce the carbon emissions of the facility, which solar panels, geothermal, what are you doing for heat, you know, this is a state building, I get that, but there's a lot of the buildings around here that aren't using natural gas anymore, new construction. Are you guys going to do that? I mean, you're in construction now, so I don't know if you have that answer yet, but...
Well, we can respond.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Kevin.
Yeah, and we can respond to some of the other comments as well, but on the sustainability part of it, I mean, it was part of the RFP process that we went through with the state to review the sustainability aspects of the building. So to mention a few, the building will be LEED Silver, so it would be a LEED rated building. We are planning to install solar panels in a portion of the site as well, and we're pursuing, the basic, energy efficient, equipment and low flow fixtures to conserve water. The building is a lab building, so it does require natural gas to operate, on an efficient basis. So it will have gas, but that's sort of typical of even some of the more sustainable lab buildings that we've developed in the area.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you. I appreciate that. Council Viro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion that this committee accept order number 25-194-10, the communication from the mayor to support this TIF.
Yes, and what we'd be doing is the motion would be to approve the TIF agreement and to approve the city council resolution.
That is my motion, Mr. Chair.
I will second that. Motion has been made and seconded to approve order number 25-100-9410, a proposed tax increment financing agreement with TCAM, Great Land Realty Partners in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for the proposed construction and leasing of a new crime laboratory for Massachusetts State Police at 100 Martin Angelo Drive. Any further discussion? Councilor Rowley.
Thank you. Just in case you decide to suspend on Monday to vote this out, I won't be here, so I do want to state my support for the TIF and thank Greatland and congratulate them on winning the RFP and bringing this great project to the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Well stated, Councilor Rowley. Councilor.
And Mr. Chair, I don't want to in any way feel that they're being treated differently. I've asked other companies that have come into Marlboro to look at a reduction in the amount of years. Yeah, it's a great project, but there's going to be other projects that are great projects, and when's this going to end? I would suggest that the answer wasn't given. It sounds like I might be outnumbered, but again, at least I'm making the effort to ask, would they be willing to reduce the amount of years? 20 years is a long time. It's a great investment. I'm looking at our financial situation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. All opposed? It carries 4-1. Thank you. Thank you for your time and welcome to the City of Marlboro.
Thank you.
Next up is order number 25-100-9404, communication from the mayor, a grant acceptance for various projects outlined in the mayor's letter as part of the fiscal year 2025 state budget earmarks funding. Good evening, Commissioner. Good to see you once again. And I'll just begin by reading the supplemental documentation that the mayor had sent to us. Dear Council President Ossing and councilors, enclosed for your review, 3 letters and 2 estimates related to the fiscal year 2025 earmarks for the city vehicle and the proposed pavilion at Galone Park. The first letter from Representative Daniel W. Gregoire addresses the earmarked funds for an outreach vehicle and clarifies that its use will not be limited to a single department. The second letter from Building Commissioner Tin Tway outlines the request for vehicles for the building department and inspectional services. He explained the need due to current shortages, and notes that while these vehicles were initially proposed for capital spending, the request was moved to the FY 2026 earmarks, which were not funded. Our fleet department has identified a 2025 Ford Explorer available on the lot to meet this need. The total cost is $44,735, secured through the procurement process to expedite fulfillment. The third letter from DPW Commissioner Ted Scott details how the earmark funding will be used for the pavilion at Galone Park, along with information about additional anticipated funding for the project. Please do not hesitate to contact me or my office with any questions. Sincerely, J. Christian Dumas, Mayor. Good evening, Commissioner.
Good evening.
Let's see, we'll probably start with the pavilion question first. That was a grant of $35,000. The big question that evening when we did table it is the additional expenditures, because this was a grant anticipating what the city had to pay. I believe you did clarify it in here using the revolving funds from the rec department, but I'll let you give a little bit of review.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. The earmark was put in, it wasn't for the full amount. The anticipation, what we would do is, because we have to have the funds expended by the end of June, so we're on a time crunch on that, we'd use that for the materials of the superstructure. Facilities could build that. Initially, we got a price of $300,000 for the pavilion when the rec department put it out, and we rejected that. So I think it's more appropriate. The facilities department, especially, we have a seasonal worker, and if you've seen the bin stairs, you've seen what he can do.
Yes.
We do that portion, and then we would form, but the actual placing of the concrete and the finishing of the concrete would have to be done by a vendor. And for that funding, we'd go to the revolving account, and we have plenty of excess in that to use that.
To do that. Okay, thank you. I will open that up to any committee members. Council Vital.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I mentioned this in the past at our last time we discussed this topic. The following Sunday after that discussion, my team and I, about 50 young adults, were down cleaning Galone Park on a cold Sunday morning. They were picking up trash and they were widening trails. And I bring this up because all of a sudden the weather changed and we started getting rain, and there was lightning. And probably 80% of the kids had no place to go because the parents they just dropped the kids off. So now they were at Galone Park and with lightning above, and there's no place in Galone Park for anyone to go to get safety. This is just not something on a whim. This was something that I lived just 2 Sundays ago. So I'm strongly in favor of this project.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Council Vital. Council Orman.
Mr. Chair, I concur with Councilor Vital. Involved with camps through the years, that was always an issue. Outside camps, summer camps, is not having shelter. So this is an easy one. I don't see why we shouldn't just be approving it. I would motion to approve.
Motion has been made, and I will second that, to approve the FY 2025 state budget earmark grant funding for the pavilion at Galone Park for $35,000. Any further discussion? Councilor Roby.
Thank you. I apologize. I don't know if this was discussed. Where is the pavilion going at the park?
Near the rec building, where the volleyball court is, in that area.
In place of the court or next to the court?
It may be. We may move it. We haven't determined that yet, but in that area.
Okay, thank you. And I guess I would say, I'm not on the committee, but I would support, I think, having a pavilion there is a great idea.
Thank you, Councilor Roby. Any further discussion? Councilor Preciado.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Will you be working with conservation? I know they have an open space plan. Is this in part to coincide with that, or just something that you guys need for now?
I don't know how it would affect that, we wouldn't be we wouldn't be going into any area that's not currently utilized, if that's what you mean. We'd be taking the area that's currently being used by the park. We wouldn't be encroaching anywhere.
Gotcha. It was my understanding that Conservation had some plans to update and upgrade the parks. I didn't know if this was part of that process.
I'm not aware of what particularly they have in mind for that, but it probably is.
Thank you, Councilor. No further discussion? All in favor? It carries 5-0. Next up, Mr. Commissioner, if you can help us on this next one. Thank you.
Sure.
Next up is the earmark grant for $50,000 for a vehicle. I did read the letter from State Representative Gregoire that it can be used for any other department. The big question I had, as we did table this, I didn't support it because I didn't want to have another vehicle in the fleet that you'd have to do maintenance, and then 10 years from now, we're going to own it in that budget line item. So that's why I didn't want it to have it in the mayor's budget. But I know Commissioner Tway had mentioned it. He also mentioned that he was already looking at the Ford Maverick hybrids. So the question is, that would have been perfect timing to get that vehicle now that he needs it. That's what his preference is.
So he initially, his vehicles have been on, as you know, with vehicles, we see the deterioration coming. And at some point, the deterioration is so bad, our fleet department has to decommission them. They're no longer safe for the road. So we could see this coming. I can't speak for what he says, but I know we've had discussions with him. We know their vehicles are in tough shape. And he did put in a while back, because these Mavericks, I believe, were part of a state bid at one time, and they didn't pick them up, so they were available. I'm not sure if they're available anymore.
That was my next question, because it is by state bid, and what's available?
Because we picked up a couple Mavericks ourselves. When we put in for equipment the previous year for capital, we found these and then pivoted and got those instead for like engineering that doesn't need a bigger truck. So we grabbed a couple of those. For this earmark, they're basically you're at the end of the road on the current year of vehicles, so there's not much. And remember, we still have to follow procurement. We have to follow people that are dealerships, I should say, that are involved in certain group bids, like state bids, so we can't just go down the street and buy a vehicle. We could, it'd just take a lot longer. So when we went out and this earmark came, we went out to the dealers to see what they had. This is pretty much it, the Explorer, and it's not a hybrid. So we've been putting a hold on it, and he calls us probably every other day saying, are you gonna buy this, or am I gonna? So he's being patient, and hopefully we can get this through, because if we're gonna have the earmark, we gotta take delivery of it and pay for it by the end of June, so.
I mean, that's by the end, which makes sense. The fiscal year.
I would appreciate if on these earmark, if we could get a suspension of the rules so that we can move forward on that if possible.
And obviously, you're more the expert. His office would be fine getting the Ford Explorer. You're fine with the Ford Explorer?
Yep.
Okay.
And just to clarify, this would not be an extra vehicle. He needs several.
Yes.
So he'd probably be utilizing it the most unless someone like Priscilla or someone wanted to use it for the day or
And I
had it.
understand.
Then they'd all coordinate it. Yep.
Because you're going to building sites, it could be snow, whatever. I fully understand that, so yes. Councilor Roby.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I wasn't at the meeting when this was tabled, but I take it that the issue was the language of that it was supposed to go for an outreach vehicle for Marlborough to be used as a mobile town hall.
Yes.
So clearly, this is now not going to be a mobile town hall. It's going to be a vehicle for use by the building
I
department.
think the intent from the mayor is it could be, but that's not its main intent. Its main intended to be used by City Hall. If for some event they want to utilize it, they could, but that's not its main use. It's not going to sit there waiting for an event. especially the building department needs vehicles, so they'd be utilizing it on a day-to-day.
That's,
If someone had a need for it, they could take it, yeah.
okay.
Because I know, like, years ago, they had a vehicle, and it was even used by the veterans agent and other inspectional services. And I'm fine with that. I just, was like Council Roby said, I just didn't want to focus it into one department. Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just a historical question. I know for a couple of years ago, you got a bunch of Nissan Leafs. How did they fare over time?
Excellent.
You still have, are they still working in operation?
Chris Lafreniere, our assistant commissioner, drives one every day.
Okay.
Hardly any maintenance.
So
The hybrids are a challenge. They're just like in the Cruiser, they're a challenge to maintain, they're a challenge, but the electric vehicles, there's like no maintenance whatsoever.
So why don't we get more of them?
What's that?
Why can't we get more of them?
We can.
Okay. It's just, I mean,
They're
you're talking about
good for
hybrids.
city
so I brought up this.
vehicles, a lot of you have to be careful on DPW vehicles, what brands have EVs. It was promising when they came out with the Ford electric vehicles, pickup trucks, and we'll have to see when we go back out if those are available and what their cost is, but
Yeah.
but when they're snow fighting, it still hasn't been proven that they're the best. When you're splashing salt on the,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the best use of battery-operated vehicles, so.
Well, that case, but it's for building inspection, stuff like that.
Absolutely.
You know,
Around town, you don't need to go far.
Yeah,
Perfect.
that's, that seems to have been, there seems to be a lot more out there. In fact, I just read an article that General Motors has more electric vehicles now than Ford. Both of them have more than Tesla now, just because they're such bigger businesses. So my only comment, because it looks like which vehicle is still up in the air, so I would at least recommend for you guys to look and see what can be picked up in electrical for a similar price.
And just so you know, the Nissan's been around for a while, that's
Oh,
why
yeah.
we went with them. So
Yes.
they're proven, you're not getting the first one off the lot in a Ford or a
Right.
GM, so you.
Right, but the Chevy Bolt's been around for a while,
Now, at this
and
point now,
there's
yep. Mm-hmm.
other ones too, so, and they're all pretty, Ford's got the Lightning and the Mustang, so,
Mm-hmm.
but not that you want you guys to drive around a Mustang. But thank you, I appreciate that.
Councilor?
Mr. Chair, thank you. And I was going to ask, pretty close to what Councilor Doucette just asked, is I know you're in a rush, I know you got something available, but I hope as we move along, we'll look at electric vehicles. I understand what you're saying about hybrids. I had two that died on me. When they go, they go. But as it relates to electric, I drove a Nissan Leaf myself for about 7 years, and it was the first model and never had any needs for maintenance, not even tires. But then again, it didn't go many miles, but maintenance-wise, they're excellent. So I would support this with the suspension based on the timeline, but I would ask in the future that we try to look at green vehicles, electric vehicles especially.
That's the first thing I asked Steve Sinato's retired. I said, what do we have out there for electric vehicles? He said, nothing. And then we barely had any vehicles at that point.
And I'm sure the price will be a little bit more. I know the Ford electric trucks are up to $9,800, I believe. But you're in a situation where you have limited time, you have something available. But in the long run, I would hope that we try to stick to renewable green energy. We have the electric stations for charging, and as the prices go down especially. So, Mr. Chair, I would recommend, if it hasn't been motion, recommend approval with the suspension.
So, with this, so I would recommend, because I do support the $50,000, I'd recommend not be limited to a single department.
Okay. Yeah.
That's your motion?
That's my motion.
I will second that. Motion has been made and seconded to approve the fiscal year 2020-25 state budget earmark grant funding in the amount of $50,000, not to be limited to a single department. Any further discussion? All in favor? That carries 5-0. Thank you. Okay, next up is order number 25-100-9412, communication from the mayor, proposed amendment to the city code, chapter 125, personnel, section 6, salary schedule, relative to various leadership positions in the Department of Public Works, including the head treatment plant operator, general foreman, head mechanic, and assistant city engineer. I'll read the letter that was submitted by the mayor. Honorable President Ossing and councilors, enclosed for your review and approval is a memorandum from Ted Scott, Department of Public Works Commissioner, regarding succession planning and proposed salary schedules. Last March, Ted Scott submitted a memo outlining succession planning, which provided for the first half of reorganizing the Department of Public Works. The attached report and memorandum from Ted provides crucial insights into the department's current operating status. 3 of these positions are currently unfilled, and the city has recognized the need to raise salaries in order to attract and retain skilled leadership and ensure long-term employment. If you have any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to contact me. Sincerely, J. Christian Dumas, Mayor. Good evening again, Commissioner. Now is Commissioner, so
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I don't know, the org chart, our new org chart has been distributed a couple times. Just, this is a little bit, DPW is kind of a enigma, how are things set up. So there's the commissioner level, the assistant commissioner, city engineer, capital projects manager is the next tier. Then the next tier is the general foreman level. In that level, you have the assistant city engineer. The fleet general foreman's called the superintendent of automotive for whatever reason. And then you have the 2 head or chief treatment plant operators that run the easterly and westerly treatment plants. So that's how the hierarchy goes, just to kind of clarify that. These positions are critical, and if anybody who took the councils that did take the tour could see how those head treatment plant operators, what they're responsible for, it's a critical thing, particularly with that. They get calls almost on a weekly basis for private firms trying to headhunt them, and their licenses are quite in demand. Besides them, the other general foremans, their salary, and they're still required to be there on an emergency basis, whether it's a water break, whether it's snow and ice, whether it's a treatment plant problem. If anybody who wanted to go to the Household Hazardous Waste Day last weekend where it was pouring, I was at that.
Yes.
And the head treatment plant operator showed up because he had to look to see how the plant was faring with all that runoff going on. So it's always on their mind. So that, and the fact that since its inception, we've increased the duties. They're required to do procurement, which is not an easy thing. They do the accounting system in Munis. So in the past, it's been more of a retirement vehicle for union members to move up and just pad their salary. Now that's not the expectation. And we've had the succession plan that was submitted over a year ago, had the first 2 tiers and moved up, and the DPW thanks you for your support in that. This is the final piece. And when you look at succession planning, we need to fill 3 positions. And the foremen that will move up into these positions already make more than the general foreman with their added benefits. So it's very tough to move them up into that. So that being said, and that's how compensation and classification study. You look external and you look internal. Doesn't do us any good if you can't move up internally. So that's the main reason it was in the succession plan. And we do want to hire from within, the people we know who they are that can give value to the city. I should just clarify, so the salary schedule would be, if approved, would become active July 1st, so it would be in the next fiscal year. So that salary you're approving is in the next fiscal year. So it wouldn't have the 3% that they're having now or the 3%. So basically, it would be the first step, and it's a 4-step, would be from, if people are in the top step to the next step would be like a 2% little under a 2% raise, but then they would have the opportunity to go those 3 additional steps. I hope that if anybody has any questions about that, I can try to clarify it, but that's basically it.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Councilor Orm.
Mr. Commissioner, you did your homework. I was just curious, when you were doing all this research, and I'm happy you did it, did you consult at all with Christine Purple at all on any of these rates?
She wasn't on board when I was doing this, so.
So this, you know, we're trying to look at the entire city.
I started this before our new mayor.
You were ahead of the
so-
curve.
Oh, yeah.
But the council.
This took a lot of man hours. This isn't something just so.
I can tell.
And I did look at past reports, compensation and classification studies, so I've gone through their methodology and looking at this, and just seeing the need that we need to have a succession plan. The DPW is critical to have people, and if you look behind us, that's the future of the DPW right there.
I agree.
So the city can rest easy when you see that. So when I'm gone, you don't have to worry, not that I'm great, but.
Yeah, no, it's,
So-
we hope you're not going to go too soon now, Mr. Commissioner. No, they're trying to, well, I've been asking to look at the entire city, not just for succession planning, but for what we're offering, and are we attracting people? So, but again, I commend you for this, and I support it, and that was my question, Mr. Chair.
And I know there are some communities that are trying to do catch-up with this succession planning in place, because a lot of things kind of fall through the cracks when a lead department head or commissioner will leave to start another position. So it's something that I do fully support. Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Scott. I know for myself and maybe some others, this is something that we have been waiting for a while and been looking forward to seeing the results of. And I know how much work you have put into this, and a couple of the items that stood out for me is, and you kind of brushed upon this, is these positions require availability for emergency response during off hours, including nights, weekends, and holidays, as you mentioned, when you were at the hazardous waste event and somebody had to come and check on a weather event. And then you had also noted that given that 2 general foreman tier positions are now officially vacant, with a 3rd impending vacancy expected in the matter of weeks.
That's now vacant since
I took
the commissioner position, that's vacant now. Yep.
This was in March, and you did mention 3 positions, yep. And so the most important part to me is that implementing a competitive salary schedule is essential to attracting and retaining skilled leadership. And so I do recognize that in the reorg, the Assistant Commissioner of Facilities position was eliminated, so one of the upper management positions is now gone, and the way that things seem to be delegated, it makes sense, and I know how much time you took and put into this. So with everything I've read and everything presented, I do support this, and I would make a motion to approve the proposed amendments to the salary schedule.
Motion has been made, and I will second that to approve order number 25-109-412, communication from the mayor with a proposed amendment to City Code Chapter 125, Personnel, Section 6, salary schedule, relative to various leadership positions in the Department of Public Works, head treatment plant operator, general foreman, head mechanic, and assistant city engineer. Any further discussion? President Rossi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, again, effective 7/1, and so all these positions would, because some of these guys aren't on step 2, or aren't on step 3, are they all going to start
I'll start at step 1.
Nope, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Councilor Doucette, because I apologize, I didn't go to you earlier.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Commissioner Scott, it's so good to say that, after all this time. I think that the succession plan is critical to maintain the institutional knowledge of this community. This corner here, that includes you too, Meredith, is some of the strongest institutional knowledge, brain trust that we have in the city, and compliment to you guys for the work you guys do. And I think that as far as pay schedule goes, this is reasonable. I think there is going to be a salary analysis that can be done separate from this. We'll see how the bubble goes and work on it from this, but I'm completely in support of this, and thank you for catching up to me.
Thank you, Councilor Doucette. Well said.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner, for being here. Thank you for doing your homework, and I really appreciate you coming here with all these figures. I'm fully in support of this. I think we should be paying our employees a competitive wage so we can keep them and retain them in our city, especially following this succession plan. If we lose an employee, right, we're down that succession plan. So very vital that we keep these people in play. And again, I appreciate the work that everyone does. I was one of the counselors that did tour the treatment plants, and I recognize how vital those treatment plants are, especially the people that work them. Without that knowledge, we would be in a lot of trouble almost daily, right? But thank you for coming in.
Thank you. Councilor Roby.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am also in support of all of this. I think from the discussion when we did the budget, though, there's still a missing piece from the mayor for a job description for the assistant city engineer.
That was for the deputy chief?
Was that
The
different?
assistant city engineer was submitted last budget cycle.
Okay, so it's...
With the succession plan.
And it's
that
a
was
current
initial.
position in the budget.
Excuse me?
It's currently...
It is not in the budget. I'll absorb, it's probably about 40 to 50. I'll absorb that in my budget.
You'll absorb...
So, point of information, I think if I understood you correct, Councilor Roby, you were asking about a job description for the assistant city engineer. That was already done last year. The position wasn't in the budget last year, and it showed up this year. That was my concern. This is how come we're adding a position. But the job description and the salary ordinance for that, for the assistant city engineer, is in place.
Thank you.
The one that Chairman Irish is referring to is the deputy police commissioner. We don't have a salary ordinance, and we have a job description via email, none of which have been formally submitted to the council for the council to act on.
Okay, thank you for the clarification
thank you,
and
Mr.
reminder
President,
of which is whiches.
Thank you.
It was a lot of budget discussion.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion? All in favor? It carries 5-0. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you so much.
Thank you, councils, for your support.
Mr. Chairman, if we're done with our business, I would motion to adjourn.
Motion's made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor? It carries. We adjourn at 7:42 p.m. Thank you.